Thank you for joining us for another video interview with Triangle Downtowner Magazine. Today we're with Larry from Larry's Coffee, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his past and how he got to where he's at, and a little bit about the company. Thanks for having us, Larry.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Always enjoy being here. I think this is our fourth time here talking about you. We don't just love the coffee, which obviously we're doing now, but
You've been here a few times, Crash. We enjoy it when you come by.
we like your mission and your what you do for business and the local economy and the economy around the world as well. So
I appreciate it.
So tell us originally how you kind of got involved with coffee here in North Carolina. And
How I got involved with coffee in North Carolina? Well, it's pretty simple. I call it my 3-floor elevator pitch. I was going to graduate school. I realized I was going to get a graduate degree I no longer wanted to have. But specifically, I moved to the South to go to graduate school. I went to University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I entered the PhD program for economics, alternative economics. I wanted to discover how to best approach economics in the world in a way that was usable and real. I felt like traditional economics was isolated and had trappings of not really understanding how the world worked together, how people interface with the world. It was all about numbers, and it became really mathematical economics, which didn't appeal to me at all. And I thought they missed the big boat on the whole picture. And so, entered alternative economics program. Well, the head department and I at UTK, University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and I didn't get along at all. And so she was the reason I switched from UTK to NC State. And I transferred to NC State. Couldn't be in the PhD program anymore. You had to switch to the master's program. So I said, that's fine. And that was just straight traditional economics. And it's like, wait a minute, I never wanted to do traditional economics. That was not my goal at all. So I said, you know what? I'm going to switch to the MBA program. So I did. And after about 2 semesters, I realized I was going down this path of getting an MBA, and I never intended to have an MBA. And I was going to be working in a cubicle at a bank across from that guy. And it's like, that just looked like hell. So I said, I have to drop out, and which is what I did. But during that time, during those many months, I was working at Raleigh's first coffee house, which is on Hillsborough Street, the original, the iconic Cup of Joe. And that was a wonderful place. It was a bastion of possibility, what the world could be. And so I was working there while I was going to graduate school. And when I dropped out, it was like, you know what? I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I grew up in Washington State and saw what coffee was doing in Seattle. I grew up in Puyallup, Washington, and I was going to school in Tacoma. And I was like, you know what? Coffee is going to be in the East the same thing that it is in the West. And so I said, I want to be an entrepreneur. Let me just start my own thing. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. What year was that?
That was early 1993 is when I was deciding should I drop out or not, which of course I did. And so 1993 was putting together the plan to get my own thing going and putting together partnerships with people to make that so.
And there were no coffee roasters around anywhere at that time, right?
No, at that time, Cup of Joe was, well, there was one. It was called Broad Street Coffee Roasters. They were in Durham. And they did an okay job. Then Cup of Joe did a fine job. But I really enjoyed roasting coffee. That was one of the things I loved at Cup of Joe. I was the first employee to roast coffee there. And one of the 3 owners there and I worked on attempting for he and I to buy out his other 2 business partners. And eventually that fell apart. And he was able to buy out the other business partners, but I was left on the outside of that train, which turned out to be a fine thing and a blessing at that. So I'm so grateful I wasn't part of that. So, but by 1994, we are working on our coffee house that we were attempting to open, as well as the roasting company, and they were in 2 different locations. The coffee house was in Cary, and the roasting operation was on Morgan Street, not too far from where I live. So I lived on I think it's called Forest Drive, and close to NC State. So that was a really nice little place. I'm really close to you regardless, which is another iconic place.
So then the next steps were you had that for a few years, and then you kind of started seeing a bigger picture of sustainability, and I think you said somebody from a co-op or something contacted you, made you think of things differently.
Yeah, yeah. So by 1998, a colleague of mine in the coffee importing business got a hold of me and said he wanted to create an import company made up of small roasters like himself and myself and a few others to create this import company that's buying direct from coffee farmers. And this is before fair trade ever existed as a term. Conceptually, it's existed for a long time. And so we get that cooperative, we turn it into co-op. We get that business going, and we set the structure as being a co-op. And so we have a co-op here in the United States made up of small roasters like ourselves, spread out. At this point, there's 24, but originally there was just 7. And spread out through all over North America, from Yukon, Canada, as far as Florida. And we get that going by 1998. It's officially organized, but we actually do our first importing as a business by 1999. So that's when the co-op started to happen, and which allowed us, my company, myself specifically, to go to source for the first time. And going to source was amazing. Going to Chiapas, Mexico, to see how this area of coffee farmers were under this military control, suppression, if you will, because of the unwheelings of NAFTA, and here's these really poor people just trying to eke out a living to sell coffee, and they're just selling coffee beans. They're not trying to buy, big cars. They're just trying to get through life. They're trying to buy a bottle of aspirin, or maybe go see the doctor, maybe. And that's it at most. But most of the time, the moms and dads are trying to help their kids get more education, which means
Happy birthday, Terrell. They're taking the cutting up.
It's Terrell's birthday.
All right, happy birthday.
Terrell's 32. He's awesome. He's our one of our most recent employees. I love Terrell. Anyways, so these moms and dads are trying to help their kids go to school, which means just paying for the bus fare to get from wherever they're at to school, which usually means getting it to one of their relatives' family houses, dwellings in the city, so they can go to school there and give money to the siblings to cover the expense of the kid existing. Right. So I'm distracted with lots of movement around here.
We're definitely in a live environment.
Where were we?
Talking about how you started moving into fair trade and sustainable efforts, and not just coffee.
All right, so going to Central America, Mexico, for the first time really opened my eyes to what life is like for coffee farmers. That was a huge monumental thing. When I saw, I left. I remember leaving the States here. I was working at my mom's coffee house, which she started her own chain of coffee houses, a few stores, and she started them. And I'm used to when it's a direct here and it's cut. So I just naturally stopped. So I'm sorry. So seeing the leaving, I remember I was helping my mom in her coffee shop and seeing these people come through, and a lot of times, not all the time, but a lot of times, these people driving really nice cars and they're miserable. You can tell it's like, oh man, you're on your way to work, which looks like you're going to hell. It's like you're going to be executed. It's like, whatever's going on in your life, you are miserable. You're not feeling happy. And your life is so opulent. And then 24 hours later, I'm in a very remote area, not of the jungle, but it certainly felt like that. And to be around kind of poverty all over the place, these people have practically nothing. And these families with a bunch of kids of all ages, you could be 2 years old, you could be 15, 16, 22 years old, and mom and dad. And their family structure, these are the happiest people I've ever seen in my life. And it's still always the case whenever I go travel. You always will find the family structure in coffee farming communities, but it might be all communities, I don't know, are really happy. And so I told myself, man, these people are so happy, and we are going to be buying their coffee beans, their raw beans, and we're going to roast them up the way we roast back at our plant. And if I can just keep buying coffee from you, it's going to help your placement in life. So we want to do that. So we began to structure systematically to unwind all our conventional coffees to be fair trade organic coffees. And that took a 3-year process to go through all the coffees. But man, it felt really good to do that. So when we started doing that, at that point there's only like 4 employees, and I'm one of the 4. So one of the people that I was working with said, hey, if we're doing this fair trade stuff, why aren't we doing more environmentally good things also? It's like, that's a really good point. So that got us to start recycling. No big deal. This is 2019. Recycling is a piece of cake. The city comes and picks up your recycling today. Well, they really didn't do that before. And when they did, you just had the green tote. And that was just supposed to be for cans and bottles. And then it's cans, bottles, and newspapers. And then it's cans, bottles, newspapers, and more. And so today, recycling is really easy. Back then, we had to collect everything here, store it, and then put it in the delivery van and take it to different areas. And we even collect the styrofoam, and we take that to a special location out towards the airport. But we started making a wholesale shift on how we thought about our impact by being a business, that we are exploiting the planet by being a business. So at least we're not exploiting people anymore. The coffee farmers it's a pretty reasonable approach to take into the coffee farmers. But now the rest of the stuff that involves being a business, we started making some systematic changes to. Then as we're working on that, we had the opportunity to buy these 2 buildings. And when we bought the buildings, we were like, we want to make these buildings not have such a demand on the environment. Let's make it so these buildings demand on the environment is as small as it possibly can be. So we worked with a number of folks, architects, engineers, to make that so. And that took a while. And then after we did that, we said, man, that wasn't easy. And thankfully, we had a couple of us had the audacity to try. And we had the right team of people that we're going to work with to make that possible. And we said, you know what? We want to do public tours to show people what we did and how easy it is. Fundamentally, where we are as a company now is almost where we started in many ways, but it's even more crystallized in my brain now that our company is about sharing. We're sharing a great cup of coffee, sharing the experience of a cup of coffee, sharing how to make a good cup of coffee, sharing the life of the coffee farmers, the journey the coffee takes to get here, or sharing anything else that we learned, such as the renovation stuff we did here. What did you do? You know, you're collecting rainwater to flush the toilets. How do you do that? It's pretty simple. But if you don't know, and if you talk to your average engineer, they don't understand how easy it is. They got to go figure it out too. So that's one of the things we like doing the tours, is to share with people how easy things are. But I think going forward, Crash, it's going to not just be about sharing stuff about you want to renovate your house or renovate your building because maybe you are the person that makes those choices at your company. But what about the other choices we make in life? What about the choices we vote with our dollars for? And every day you go out and do something. You buy a cup of coffee. You're voting for the cup of coffee. You're voting for all the elements of this cup of coffee. It's the beans themselves, maybe the fair trade. But if they're not fair trade, or even if they are fair trade, you're voting for a manufacturer like Larry's. And by voting with your dollars for this coffee, you're voting for the business practices that we do. And if you're buying from a different roaster, you're voting for their business practices. Same is true with a tennis shoe company. You're voting for that tennis shoe. Cool, you like that tennis shoe. but you're also voting for, with your dollars, for all the practices that go on to make those tennis shoes. If it's just a cool tennis shoe and it makes you run faster, well, that's great. But if that's all it is, if I told you those tennis shoes were clear-cutting forest, I'm just making this up, but if they're clear-cutting forest and you were running a sweatshop with a bunch of little children, 8 years old, making your tennis shoes, would you still vote with your dollars for those tennis shoes?
Right.
Hopefully, probably not. And where I'm hoping we end up as a society, that as a consumer, we're going to pay a lot more attention to the entire ecosystem that makes up a business and all the products within that business. And I think, and I say the consumer has created all this destruction, and that businesses just give the consumer what they want. And if you're going to vote for destruction, the business is going to chase destruction because the business is chasing your dollars. So if instead the business was chasing sustainable and good, and the consumer which wanted that, the business is going to chase that. And so voting with your dollars for the good is how it's going to change. So my bracket thing is consumers took us down this path of destruction. And the consumer today, because of our cell phones, makes transparency, discovering transparency easier, then the consumer is going to make it so our salvation is the consumer. Because the consumer is going to continue voting with their dollars for environmentally sound manufacturing companies and products in general. At least that's my pipe dream.
People seem a lot more aware and concerned with things. I mean, some people obviously not, but I think a lot more people are aware and concerned. And it's easier to be educated because you hear about bad practices and you hear about good practices. And a lot of people, I think, understand not just that you make good coffee, but all the things that comes from that. Whether you're pushing the sustainability and putting in the cistern and skylights and other things to save on power and water and everything else, the fair trade and the other things that you put in place. So I think a lot of people you guys have done a good job of educating while selling, so I think that's just much easier with, it's on your product, it's on your website. I think people talk about it because they appreciate, it'd been easier to not do any of that. I just make good coffee. That's not easy, but it's easier than making good coffee and making less of an impact on the planet negatively and making a positive impact
Yeah, I
going into the
appreciate that.
future.
Yeah, I agree. It is easier. And then a piece of me is like, if all we're doing is selling another pound of coffee, BFD.
Right.
If that's all you're doing,
Yeah.
it's like it needs to be a lot more attached to it
Right.
than just another cup of coffee. It needs to be a really high standard coffee. It needs to taste really good.
Right.
It needs to be wonderful coffee. It has to be all that. And what else? You've got to have the what else stuff. And I think that's where we're going as a society. And certainly in our urban centers like this, Raleigh, I think you have to be like this. Anyone in the Triangle, you have to have values like this. If you don't, you will acquire it or you will go away.
So now, after this year, I think earlier this year was your 25th
Yes,
anniversary,
yes.
which is a huge milestone for any company.
Yeah.
And we're happy that you guys have stayed in business and stayed here and grown as much as you have.
Yeah. Thanks.
You just hired a new president,
Yes, I have.
and he'll be taking over the bean baton from you.
Bean baton, I like that. Yes.
And you'll be getting into some things that you've kind of grown into and wanted to expand, right?
Yeah, so Paul Sabanas joined the company about 2.5 months ago, and we're working on handing him the baton. He's holding the baton. He's like showing what to do with it. So it's going to be another couple of months. By January 1, it's like, all right, I'm taking the training wheels off, and you're on your own. If you skin your nose, it's like, just pull yourself back up. But it's going to free me to do more fundamentally sustainability stuff. So we have a coffee house. It's called 42 Lawrence. We're probably going to change the name to be Larry something. It's likely what I'm going to do. Because the coffee house, besides sharing with the consumer what a great cup of coffee is, I want to share with them where the coffee comes from. And I want to share with them the food we sell. Where's the food come from? Who's making the food? Where did the ingredients come from? So my vision is when you go to the coffee shop, you get to find out a lot of information about every product we have. If not every product, well, at least a lot of products. The goal is 100% of the products. You'll be able to do a deep dive and get all the information you want to have.
Right.
And so we're not going to be there real soon, but we'll be there soon enough. So my goal then is to spend my bandwidth around how to achieve what I just said. Because just hiring a bunch of people and setting them free doesn't get me there at all. I need to be more involved. And I want to be more involved to achieve the vision of what I'm talking about here. Because fundamentally, I think when we have that going on, restaurants are going to do that too. Imagine you go to, say you go to Soka, wouldn't it be great if you can use your phone and click on something and you find out the ingredients about where that dish comes from, what are the components of that dish, or at least the vegetables. If the vegetables came from Raleigh City Farm, could you tell me more about that? What's that even mean? And why is that important? And what's a CSA? And why is that important? Maybe it's not important. And so the more people get to discover where their food comes from, then there's more transparency is around what you put into your body. But after that, it's like, besides where your food comes from, it's going to be, what foods do I need to put into my body? What's the medical elements going on here? Why does my body need certain things besides that dumb food pyramid thing, which is kind of bogus? So how can I need to become a lot more knowledgeable and interact with really, really smart people around this topic to help put together what that program looks like. And so that's what I want to spend my time doing. That brings me a lot of joy when I think about that. Because then the average consumer out there can go to restaurants or coffee houses and learn about where the food stuff's coming from. Imagine 20 years from now, that'll be normal. Might be 50 years from now, that'll be normal. But I want to help participate in what the new normal is going to become. That brings me joy. Just selling another pound of beans, so what? So that's what Paul and the entire infrastructure here is, to sell a lot of pounds of beans. And it's really been quite interesting to see how many corporations out there want to know more about their coffee, and that their staff want to know more about, where's your coffee coming from? Where's the tea coming from? Who's roasting this coffee? So this is becoming the new normal, and it's going a lot faster than I thought. I thought it'd be another 20 years before that happened. It's happening right now.
That's good.
Great. We're going to jump on that.
I think you're helping push that out there too. So
Trying to, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, your average consumer out there, not in the urban centers, but out in the rural communities, are drinking, cans of cold brew. And they can discover this stuff by drinking our can of cold brew. And I want to do a lot more efforts to talk about where everything comes to make this can of cold brew. I'm not going to share with you the secret recipe, Phil, but I'm going to share with you everything else I can. And hopefully you'll become enamored with our brand, and you'll start asking questions of the other brands you support, and ask them why don't you have rainwater collection? Or how much electricity do you waste? Just, the more consumers ask questions like that, the more businesses will change their behavior.
That's true.
Yeah.
So a few details. So
Okay, details,
how big is your company? I know you started off with obviously just you, and then you had 4 employees there for a while. So how many employees you have now, and what's your export look like, or how many states or countries are you in?
We're only in the United States.
Yeah.
All right, so initially it's just me as a telephone, a warehouse, and a super wagon. And then I had a business partner. And then he went away. Then it was just me again. And then I had a few more business partners. But anyway, we're still relatively small. We have like 25 employees. If you count the staff down at the coffee shop, which is a separate company, but if you count them, we're almost 30, I suppose, maybe 29. And so that's the quantity of people. I'm really thrifty when it comes to spending. And we ship all over the United States. Online, we ship as far north as there's a town in Alaska called the North Pole. And we used to ship there every year, but I think that person passed away, unfortunately. It wasn't Santa Claus.
That's good. That'd been a good endorsement.
Yeah, you would have. But I think of us as hardcore Mississippi East, entire Mississippi East ship coffee to California. It's always brings a smile to my face when we ship coffee back to my old trumping grounds in Seattle, and some of the folks in Microsoft. It always makes me smile when I see those orders come in. It also makes me smile when there's a new customer that says, I was visiting in Raleigh, or my daughter took me to a restaurant and drank your coffee, and I want to buy online now, and I'm back in Alabama, or I'm back in Texas, and what should I buy? And it's nice when we get those emails. So we pick up new customers all the time.
Great.
Yeah, very fortunate.
Well, we're looking forward to the next 25 years and see what comes out, and really excited about the Larry Sustainable College coming up soon.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's one of the
stuff,
big things I want to work on coming up here is Larry's, we used to call it Sustainability School, and I want to resuscitate that and get it going big time.
Right.
And we might do a GoFundMe to help hire a director of sustainability to spearhead that.
Right.
I really would like to share this knowledge of sustainability and dovetail it into the company in a big way. It's where we ultimately get to share this with other businesses so they can maybe do something similar. Come here and look at this. Think of us as just a big lab.
Yeah.
And
You're a live working model.
it's it's a live working model. I mean, I'm okay to fail. I fail all the time.
Yeah, it's the best way to learn.
Yeah, I say that whenever I give tours to, or have an opportunity to speak to some college students here on tour. It's like, when I'm talking to them, it's like, you're going to go out one day and do something. Just figure out what you want to do and give it your all. And don't be afraid to change your mind. And no matter what, failures are okay. But you just have to learn from every mistake you make.
Right.
And that's when you become really rich with knowledge. So, good luck, everybody.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that you can tell people about. Say, hey, let me tell you how I failed. So now they can spend less energy and less time and learn from your mistakes. And one of the things that we're going to be doing in the next few months is doing more videos with people who have been trailblazers and have been on the cutting edge of things, because you usually fail more when you're doing something nobody's done, or at least nobody in your area. So if we can tell those stories of those people doing those things, and hey, here's 10 things we learned, don't do them this way.
Yeah.
You can skip all that, come in, you might have a couple of failures where they're going to try something a little bit different, their business is a little bit different, but it can save them a lot of time and they can get to where they're making a difference quicker. So I think that's great that you want to tell that story and get that out there in front
Well,
of
it's
people.
pretty cool, Crash. I'm glad you're going to probably take that on. That sounds wonderful.
Once yours gets going, we'll come back and do another video and
Okay.
talk about even more good things that you're doing.
So one of the things when I was talking about this a few months ago with some students, it's like, a good title of a book is 10,000 things I did and they all failed. But I got one or two that worked, and that's all you need to do. Just keep
Go ahead and
trying.
register that .com, so when you write the book, you already have it. Nobody will take it since they'll hear it now.
Well, I like that. I have the .com, 10,000 reasons to dance.com.
There you go.
Yeah, 10,000 reasons, I think.
That's like a new series.
Yeah, all right. I like that.
Well, thank you for having us. I appreciate it. We love coming here and love the coffee. And we always say the downtowner is fueled by Larry's coffee. So,
Well, we
appreciate
certainly enjoy the downtowner. I'm so glad you guys
Thank
have been
you.
around.
All
You keep chugging on.
we'll be back.
Excellent.
Thanks.
Thank you.